Hi, welcome to In a Pickle Knitting. My name is Donna. Today is October 22nd, so it's Vlogtober 22nd today, and I'm coming to you from Manassas, Virginia with a short vlog. If you haven't visited the Vlogtober before, I give you a children's literature book for the season and then a craft. If you have come before, thanks so much for stopping by again. I hope you enjoyed today's craft and book. The book today is called The Vanishing Pumpkin by Tony Johnston, and this book is illustrated by Tommy DePaola, and usually you see he illustrates his own books. So it's nice to see him work with another author because his style is slightly different in this particular book. So this is a story of a 700-year-old woman and an 800-year-old man who realize that it's Halloween and they want their pumpkin so that she can make them a pumpkin pie. But it has vanished, as the title implies, and they go off looking for it, and along the way they run into a ghoul, they run into a rapscallion and a varmint, and finally I think a wizard. And each time they the person or creature tries to find it for them and can't, and so the old man pulls a trick on them, and then they all like the trick. He turns them back and off they head again, and there is some repeating text. Let me find one page that has more of the, here we go. They went as fast as a 700-year-old woman and an 800-year-old man can. In fact, they fairly flew. And here the ghoul and the rapscallion are following behind them. So that's kind of cute. This is a kind of book that young children like to have read to them. Young children, I say, all the way up to maybe even 4th grade. It's a nice read aloud. It has a lot of that repetition, which is interesting to listen to, and it builds that little bit of predictability that children like to find in their books, and also teaches an important reading skill to be predicting what's going to happen next as you're reading. And I'm not going to tell you what happens next except to say there is a happy ending. So that is our book for today. Now, our craft for today, I have made from fabric and a little bit of quilting what I'm calling a mug rug. It could be a trivet, but I think it wouldn't be very protective because I only have one layer of batting. If you wanted to take this and make it a trivet or a hot pad to put, you know, for a dish to sit on, I think you'd want to buy some of that thermoweb batting to put inside of it to make it sturdier, or even put that, I don't know if the silvery stuff that's padded to put on the bottom, because then you could use it to protect your surfaces. But this is what I made. It has, as you can see, an acorn, and I just kind of did a wing it job here. And I'm going to show you pictures of the step-by-step process, and I'll just put them in here. And I'm not going to give you totally measurements because I just kind of took it as I went, but where I can, I will tell you that because it's not a pattern. So to start off with, I did purchase a fat quarter pack. They call it a bundle from Joann Fabrics, and it had 5 different fat quarters in it that had browns, and most, several of them, not most, but I think at least 2, maybe 3, had some gold metallic on them. And so I wanted to supplement the browns that I had, so I purchased that for that purpose. And I still have a lot left over that I'm going to do some other things with. So after, you know, I had to, of course, iron this, but I cut and made 4 patch squares and put those 4 patch squares together. So to make the 4 patches, I chose for each one 4 fabrics, and I cut 2.5-inch squares. You could cut whatever size squares you wanted to. And then you want to sew if you set them out 2 by 2, you want to sew the top 2 together with the bottom 2 together. And then you want to press that seam closed. You want to, just as it is, so it can relax the threads there. And then take the seam and press towards the dark side. Although I did on some end up having to change that direction of that seam because I wanted the pieces to line up better and not be quite so bulky. So after you've pressed one seam one way and one seam the second way, you're going to put those 2 rectangles together, matching up that seam in the middle. And these are all 1/4 inch seams, and then you're going to sew a seam to put these together. Once you're done with that, you want to leave it closed and press that seam to relax it. And then if you open it out, use your fingers to press in opposite directions. Now, if you'll notice, I show the arrows pointing maybe the wrong way from what I actually ended up doing. I don't know, but I'd already put these arrows here. So press one seam one way and one the other. And as you do this, because you haven't been back stitching these stitches, it kind of relaxes those end stitches. And if you look at the circled part, you end up with this opened up square. And that helps it be a little bit flatter and not quite so bulky. So then that can be pressed, and you're going to make 4 of those. Then I sewed the 4 together, so you'll see my 16 squares sewn together here. There was some waste in this. I think maybe one color didn't even end up coming out, but I didn't know how else to put it together. And I went online and found some free black and white clip art. I found an Acorn that I liked and printed it out as large as I could, and I pinned it to my 16-piece patch. Now, what you could do either before this or alongside of this is to use your heat and bond product and go ahead and have it either applied to the back of the big square that you've made. I did not do it in that order, but I probably should have. So what I did was I cut it out first, and then you'll see here it's been cut out, and then I remembered that you have to have that backing on, because was going to applique this on, and it helps to have, you can applique without it, but I like to applique with it on because it doesn't move around at all. So then I had to put the material underneath and carefully go around the Acorn, and it would have been easier if that had all been cut in one step with cutting for the pattern, but it works anyway. And then I ironed it onto a square of fabric, and I'm going to show the stitch here that I used. It probably isn't a very long clip, but it's a little clip it's kind of a blanket stitch. It goes straight and then goes over to takes a stitch to the left and then comes back, and then straight over to the left and comes back. And this just makes, so you're running some stitching right along the edge, but then you're catching the piece, so it attaches it and keeps it from coming apart. And here's a close-up of that stitch. You might be looking at my thread and thinking it looks a little odd, and that is because I was using a variegated thread. It has various shades of oranges and browns, so it goes light and dark. I thought it went along with some of the colors. So then once that has been entirely stitched down, then press it. And I decided to add some sashing. So I cut 2-inch wide strips and applied one to both sides, right and left. And then after they were attached, pressed it and measured across the top. I'm not giving measurements there because I just measured across. How wide was it? I think the final finished product is about 12 1/4 by 12 1/4, my finished, but that's once it's been bound. So then I did the top strips. Again, these were 2 inches wide, but after I was done sewing those on, I pressed it, and then I trimmed those side pieces to be 1.5 inches. So they were just nice and straight. Then I put some batting behind and put a backing fabric on, and I stitched in the ditch along all of the squares in the Acorn, and then I stitched in the ditch between that light colored fabric and those border pieces, and then I trimmed it. That's when I trimmed it up to the 1.5 inches wide on the sides and the top. And then I cut some binding strips, 2 inches long, wide, 2 inches wide by the the fat, and I was using fat quarters, so I didn't have very long pieces. I attached 4 of them together and applied the quick binding. And to do that, you fold the binding strips that you made, this long strip, fold it in half lengthwise, wrong sides together. So you're then looking at this long strip that has a folded edge and 2 raw edges. And then turn it over onto the front of your square, and you're going to you're going to sit it down on the quilt with the fold facing in towards the quilt, and the raw edges even with your raw edges, and you're going to go all the way around. But there's special things you do for the mitered corners, and I think that might be beyond the scope today of this vlog. So if you look up machine binding quilts, you'll usually find lots of tutorials on that subject. I've watched several. So then I have my finished object, and I'm quite pleased with it. I think this is a square I could have done along with my autumn leaves. Might have made a nice center square for doing a table runner. Could have made a pillow. Could have kept it just this size and bound it around the edges and made a pot holder out of it. But again, you need that stronger stuff inside to make sure that you don't get burned. But this is fine. I'm sitting it on my little table next to my chair where I knit, and I'm going to sit my coffee down on there in the morning. So this is, I'm using it as a mug rug, and I put just this light color on the back. So that's our craft for today. Thanks so much for watching and listening, and I will see you back again here tomorrow if you'd like to join me. Bye.